Now, moving on. 3-year-old preschool students in Gilgil tragically died on Friday under mysterious circumstances. According to autopsy, the child died from lack of oxygen after drowning. The family has raised concerns, saying the teachers gave them 2 conflicting accounts of the incident and are now demanding a thorough investigation to uncover the truth.
Teacher Maureen akaniambia mtoto alishikwa na fever, alikuwa anakaa Dar, ndo wakamkimbiza Mathare. Nikamuuliza kuna shida nyingine, akasema hakuna, akakata simu.
The boy was just found at some point in our school. After a search for him in water in our fish pond, and that we think is the cause of his demise. And I think it has also been confirmed by the pathological report that we have received.
Kulingana na ile venye statement yao wanasema mtoto amekufia pool na mtoto vijana na pia bodi ya mtoto kuangalia mtoto ni msafi na hiyo maji ya pool ni chafu sana. Ingekuwa na mtoto amekufia kwa pool ningeona ile uchafu ya mwili au nikibenye mtoto kama mtoto kufunga kwa maji huwa na struggle mdomo ungeona hizo uchafu ya hiyo pool. Na hizo zote sijaona. But hospitali pia kuona mtoto akona povu kwa mdomo na mapua. Najiuliza mtu akikufia kwa maji povu inatokea na wapi hapo?
Mimi nataka kujua huyo mtoto akianguka kwa fish pond walimu walikuwa wapi? Kazi yao ni gani? Nikamuuliza kwa nini amemkimbiza Mathare na wanajuanga mtoto akigonjeka tunampelekanga St. Mark ama Komboni. Cause huko ndo kuna facilities poa.
Mtu mgani huyu anaweza kufa kwa maji na tubo isikue na maji? Huyo mtoto aiwozea mtoto akifanywa postmortem na hakuna hata tone moja la maji.
Everyone is devastated here. And so take it from us that your loss is our loss. And we will support the family in any way we can.
Now, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has publicly challenged President William Ruto, urging him to stop interfering in his family affairs and focus on national issues. During his 2-day tour of Kirinyaga County, Gachagua criticized the president over alleged meddling in inheritance disputes and described Kenya's economy as struggling, calling for better governance. He noted that the relationship between Mount Kenya residents and Ruto is largely transactional, dependent on development and investment. Despite this criticism, Gachagua reaffirmed his commitment to serve the Kenyan people and shared his vision for the country.
Amechanganyikiwa, amesahau mambo ya Kenya, anaongea mambo ya familia, anaigilia familia ya Gachagua. Alijaribu kugawanya mlima, nikamkataza. Sasa ameshindwa kugawanya mlima, anafikiria atagawanya familia ya Gachagua. Wewe William Ruto, wewe hapana chief, hapana mzee ya mtaa, hapana wa familia ya Gachagua. Wewe uko na familia yenu ya Karajin, kwenda ongea mambo ya familia yenu, hapana igilia familia ya hapa mlimani. Ameshindwa na kazi kama rais ya Jamhuri ya Kenya. Sasa anatafuta kazi ya mzee wa mitaa ya kutatua shida kwa mafamilia. Wewe Kasongo, tunakwambia next year tarehe 10 mwezi wa 8 tutaamuka mapema tukupeleka nyumbani.
Watu wa Mwea wakikupa kura hapa Morindoko Saungariama utawapea title deeds. Tunajua ya kwamba umeiba ya kutosha. Usidhani kuiba mashamba ya hapa Saungariama ulete title deeds hawa watu.
Now, to matters education, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, has threatened to withdraw from the Social Health Authority scheme, citing failure to address teachers' welfare. Speaking in Kisumu, Secretary General Akelo Misiro warned that the union will pull out of the health insurance program unless both the Social Health Authority and the Teachers Service Commission act quickly. Misori said many teachers are unable to access quality health care under the current scheme, adding that it is not working for them. He urged the concerned bodies to resolve the issue urgently to ensure teachers receive proper medical services.
So we don't think the leadership of SHA is portraying good leadership. They are trying to undermine the confidence that we already bestowed on them Because just 3 weeks ago, when we met the Cabinet Secretary for Health, he did assure us that the SHA was going to work for us, and they were already putting in place even the contact lines for engagement, for feedback to be on. And that one now has ceased to work. We were also assured that there are now employees all over the counties, 380 of them, who are going to address the issue and the concerns of our members. This one is now not the case. Hospitals like
And residents in Mwea, Embu County are demanding urgent government intervention following a rise in deadly road accident involving school-going children. The latest tragedy occurred on Friday night when a 13-year-old grade 6 pupil from Kabuyo Primary School was killed by a speeding saloon car near Gadoga Trading Center in Mwea. Eyewitnesses say the vehicle lost control, veered off the road and rolled several times before hitting the boy, killing him instantly. The driver fled the scene, prompting police to launch a manhunt. The vehicle has since been impounded at Waguru Police Station. The body was taken to Kerugoya Level 5 Hospital mortuary. Locals have described the area as a dangerous black spot, citing frequent speeding despite the presence of schools and churches nearby.
Tumekuwa tukilia sana tuwekewe bump hapa ndio hii ajali ziishe, kwa sababu hii sio ajali ya kwanza hapa. Haiwezi maliza miezi miwili kama hakuja kufa mtu through accident. Tunaomba tuwekewe bump hapa, at least ndio hii speed ya magari ya hapa iweze kuisha.
Shida ya barabara ni kwamba gari zinatokanga pale kwa ile mteremko zikiwa na speed sana, alafu vile zinakujanga na speed azitambui kama mtu wa boda ako kando ama mtu mwingine mwenye anatembea na miguu ako kando.
Hata kama serikali inaweza pengine kutuwekea vyuma, hizi vyuma ambazo zinawekwa sides kwa barabara, ili hizi na bulbs pia, ili mtu akitoka kule juu ama pengine akitoka upande huu mwingine anaweza kuanza kuslow, because that is the most
And moving on, the government has stepped up efforts to tackle banditry in parts of the North Rift. The military is now set to play a more active role in ongoing security operations. Defense Cabinet Secretary Soipan Tuya stated that the Kenya Defense Forces are ready to support multi-agency teams in flushing out bandits. This comes amid concerns over delayed actions in some areas despite the deployment of security personnel. Additionally, sections of Alia County have been declared disturbed, paving the way for a major security crackdown.
Mheshimiwa Rais amepeana a very firm instruction ya kwamba in his watch mambo ya banditry na insecurity will be a thing of the past. Ninajua kulikuwa na operation ambayo ilifaulu hapo mbeleni na labda ikaenda chini, lakini we will go back to the drawing board kuhakikisha that we have a foolproof operation activity in every corner of Laikipia County that is affected.
Tangu jeshi waingie hapa mwezi uliopita mpaka sasa, hata day before yesterday tulivamiwa na hao majambazi. Hiyo ni kudharau serikali.
Kama alichukua mali ya wajane, kama ile hoteli zilikuwa za ndugu yake alichukua, na yeye anatembea na Kalonzo Musyoka, ambaye pia Kalonzo Musyoka tunasikia ile chapa ako naye na hatujamuuliza ni chapa ya NYS, na yule rafiki mwingine anaitwa Matiang'i pia na yeye ile chapa ako naye Ruaraka ni ya serikali. Hawa watu watokee watuelezee kinaganaga kama ni kweli ama ni urongo.
Tushirikiane pamoja ili tuweze kuwashikilia wamama wetu waweze kujiinua.
Now moving on, a family in Kinungi, Naivasha is in deep sorrow after losing their 34-year-old relative Daniel Murui. Daniel drowned last Saturday while fishing at Lake Nakuru National Park. The family has been camping at the site since Sunday, hoping to recover his body. They say they have not received any support from the Nakuru County government or officers from Kenya Wildlife Service, who manage the park, they are now appealing to professional divers to help in the search and recovery mission. Local leaders are also asking Daniel friends who were fishing with him to help identify the exact spot where he drowned. Fishing in Lake Nakuru had been banned earlier after reports showed the fish contained toxic elements.
Toa gharama kubwa sana, lakini hatujafaidika. Tunaomba county government na national government watusaidie ili tuweze kupata mwili wetu, kwa sababu wenye walikuwa wanafua na yeye wanajua pahali aliangukia, lakini nafasi ya kumtafuta ni dogo sana. Ile nafasi tunapewa ni ya 2 hours, na kama leo kumenyesha,
tumekuwa tukimtafuta na tujawahi mpata. Tunaomba serikali tusaidie tupate huyo ndugu yangu, kwa sababu hatuna amani vile tumekuwa tukikuja na hatumpati. Kama huyu kijana hatapatikana leo, wacha kufuguliwe mpaka wakati mtoto atafanya nini, atapatikana. Kwa sababu hiyo ndio haki ya hawa watu, na wanaomba serikali na wanaomba divers wa county wapatikane ili waje wasaidie wale vijana ambao wanavua samaki hapo. Wanasema wafuguliwe, watampata huyo kijana hapa kwa ziwa, kwa sababu wanajua pahali alianguka na wanajua hata kama angetokea juu.
Now, former Migori Women Representative Pamela Odhiambo has urged residents and authorities in Nyeri sub-county to work closely together to address the rise of insecurity. Recent attacks on Nyeri police station and the Deputy County Commissioner's office resulted in property damage and injured 2 officers. Odhiambo condemned the violence and stressed the importance of inclusive dialogue to develop lasting solutions to the security challenges affecting the area.
Kuna changamoto mingi za vita hapa na pale, tumekosa chakula, hatuna amani kwa maboma zetu, lakini kwa leo Honorable Dr. Pamela Odhiambo ametuletea chakula. Tuko na furaha sana leo, watoto watakula, tutakuwa na furaha kwa nyumba zetu, na tunaomba amani idumu katika eneo ya Makal.
While the frustrations and fears arising from insecurity are valid and must be addressed with urgency, the destruction of public property and attacks on governments in institutions and officers cannot and must not be justified. At the same time, I humbly appeal to the authorities, that is the government authorities, to exercise restraint and mercy, especially towards innocent residents who did not even participate in this act. Strongly urge security agencies to work closely with the community through strengthened community policing initiatives. Security is a shared responsibility, and sustainable peace can only be achieved when there is trust and cooperation between the people and law enforcement officers.
And the Principal Secretary for Immigration and Citizenship, Belio Kipsang, has directed chiefs and assistant chiefs to ensure all eligible citizens receive their national identification cards on time. Speaking at Kitale National Polytechnic in Trans Nzoia County, Kipsang revealed that over 80,000 residents who have reached the required age have not yet applied for IDs. He noted that this delay is affecting access to essential government services. He called on local administrators to step up awareness campaigns and encourage residents to apply for their IDs without delay.
We see Trans Nzoia still having numbers going towards 70,000-80,000 of people who may not have taken IDs. And mainly, this affects mainly women who sometimes don't find it necessary when they are married to get identity documents. And these are the people now we are targeting. We were in Narok, and we registered all the ladies as old as 80 years. I think we registered 5 of them more beyond 70 years. So we shall continue to ensure that nobody is left behind, because today the ID is everything.
And 2 youths from Narok County have successfully completed a 150-kilometer peaceful walk from Narok North to State House, Nairobi. The walk along the Nakuru-Nairobi highway was aimed at drawing attention to the poor state of infrastructure in their constituency. The duo intends to personally present a petition to President William Ruto, highlighting the urgent need for improved road networks in Narok North. According to the youths, the deteriorating road conditions have severely disrupted transport, business operations, and access to essential services, hindering economic growth and service delivery in the area.
Kwa ofisi ya Deputy President kwa njia ya amani, ya utulivu yenye ilikuwa ya safari ya watu watatu peke yake. Lakini sasa manake tulikatizwa kufikisha, na hii Narok County sasa ile yenye tumesema tutawapea ni kwamba tutakuwa na maandamano. Kama mtatusikiza na kama petition yetu haitasikizwa na barabara za Narok North ziangaliwe, juu tuko na shida sana. Imagine mahospitali, hauwezi access mashule, hiyo mashida yote yenye tuko nayo. Kwa hivyo tunaomba wakazi wa Narok North mtoke mtusupport siku ya Jumatatu. Manake tunapangana kwa ward zote 6 zenye ziko Narok North, tutapangana. Hii Narok lazima tufunge juu ya mabarabara.
And during a multi-agency visit to the Galana Kalalu irrigation and flood security projects in Kilifi County, Orlando Sitati, head of the government delivery unit, urged that all stalled and ongoing projects be completed within the year. Sitati highlighted that the 1.4 billion shillings Galana Kalalu bridges is 96% complete, while the 2.9 billion shillings electrification project is only 41% done. He assured residents that electricity will reach the area by June, praised progress on the bridge, but warned contractors against delay in electrification.
Kwa wale wanakandarasi ambao ni hafifu, tunaendelea kuwakumbusha kwamba haki ya Mkenya lazima itendeke. Ule ambaye hatatii yale ambayo tumekubaliana leo, hatutakuwa na budi kushinikiza mashirika ya serikali yachukue hatua hiyo ifai.
So if we put more effort, I think Singapore is within our reach. And of course, as we finalize the Vision 2030, which is 4 years from now, our next long-term plan should be able to accelerate some of these projects so that Kenyans can feel the impact that the government is creating.
We've agreed with the departments and agencies that are implementing that sector on what they should be able to do so that we are able to accelerate the project so that by September we should be fully lit at the.
Now, Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, has expressed confidence in Monica Juma's appointment to the senior United Nations position, calling it a milestone for Kenya's global standing. Mudavadi made the remarks during a farewell reception held in her honor at the Sarova Pan-Africa Hotel. The event brought together senior government officials, diplomats, and members of the international community to celebrate Monica Juma's public service and her transition to the international role. He noted that Ambassador Juma, appointed as Executive Director of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, as well as Director General of the United Nations Office at Vienna, reflects Kenya's growing influence in multilateral diplomacy and global governance.
I take this early opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude for the confidence expressed in my ability to take up the designate roles of Executive Director, UNODC, and Director General of UNOV.
Ambassador Juma becomes the highest ranking Kenyan to serve within the United Nations system. She also becomes the second African to hold this position.
I cannot tell you how many people have personally written to me saying, wow, this is just fantastic news, is it not?
And President William Ruto has asked Kenyan ambassadors to focus on sharing positive stories about the country. He encouraged them to ignore criticism and instead highlight Kenya's progress and investment opportunities. The president spoke during the 19th Ambassadors Conference held at Safari Park in Nairobi. He said diplomats play an important role in improving Kenya's image around the world. Ruto urged the ambassadors to attract investors and promote economic growth by telling success stories about the country. The conference brought together Kenyan representatives from different parts of the world to discuss how to enhance the country's global presence.
You are our ambassador. You are our frontline citizens, wherever it is that you are. On matters diaspora, and given the immense opportunities being created through what I've just discussed, and working closely with the State Department of Diaspora Affairs, you should give it focus with a view to expanding new markets or expanding into new markets and new territories. At the same time, I expect the bilateral framework governing the employment of our citizens abroad to be strong, enforceable, and genuinely protective of their rights.
Kenya is expanding its tourism sector by exploring new markets both locally and internationally. The country is now focusing on showcasing unique attractions beyond traditional city events and beach destinations. In line with this strategy, Fairmouth Mount Kenya Safari Club recently hosted tourism industry players, including leading brands and partners. At the special event, the facility unveiled its new meeting, incentives, conference, and exhibition center. The leadership at Fairmouth believes this is the right time to position Kenya as a leading MICE destination. They are encouraging industry stakeholders to work together and take advantage of this growing opportunity.
It's a big part of the business. I think that people are traveling extensively, and I think that's why Mount Kenya and why Fairmount Mount Kenya, because we offer something which is different. I will say that MICE is not only about meetings between four walls, but also destination, and we are the perfect location for destination MICE.
We want the Kenya Tourist Board, through the government of course, to help be able to push the destination for MICE. We have done this for leisure, but are we doing this for MICE? Think about what's happening globally right now. Nobody's flying around the UAE, but everybody can still get to us. So right now, East Africa is really potential, not just for leisure, but for MICE, for conferencing.
Now, in sports news, Harambee Stars fell 5-4 to Estonia on post-match penalties after a 1-1 draw in their FIFA series opener at Amahoro Stadium on Friday. The team now prepares to face Grenada, who lost 4-0 to host Rwanda in the third-place playoff on Monday at 6 p.m. East African time, aiming to finish the tournament on a high note.
The line kind of, and then yeah, when you go penalties, it's a lottery. You know, it's a lottery, and like I said, we don't have the best fortune with penalties. We did the same in Chan, and it was, we know the end result, and now today as well. You know, but you think when you lose on penalties, the effort that the boys gave, the maturity that they showed, and the composure, and yeah, to compete, because this is a team that played against Italy. This is a team that faced Haaland. They played against Norway. They played against really good opposition. We only a small African country, East Africa, but yeah, we showed today that, you know, we're making progress in the right direction, and I think that's all that I want for my team, is that we make progression, and when
finally, it's a wrap for EBN Weekend Edition. Many thanks for watching. I am Leticia Afandi, and to everyone who made this broadcast a success, thank you so much. Now enjoy the rest of your evening.